Hi, my name's Jeff Coons. I'm with Team Gillis Real Estate. We've got a ton of experience in the area selling and buying homes. If we can give you a hand, let me know. This is a quick video about the BRBC form that you'll need to sign when buying a home and getting represented by an agent. And so let's dig into the BRBC and what it's all about so that you're a little more comfortable with the process and the form. Okay, as you start your real estate buying journey, particularly in California, you need to be aware of what a BRBC is and how it works for yourself and for your agent. And so, BRBC is a buyer's representation and broker compensation agreement. It is a result of the NAR, National Association of Realtors lawsuit that went through in 2024. And so the BRBC is one of the results of that changed some of the standardization and documents within the industry. And so it is a legal document in California that's going to legalize and formalize the relationship between the buyer and their agent. It's going to outline the scope of services, the terms of the representation, and in particularly how the agent will be compensated, which is important for the buyers and the sellers. And so it is mandatory in California for realtors before they submit an offer on behalf of a buyer and before they show homes that are not listed within their brokerage. Okay, so basically you can go to open houses all you want, but you can't be shown houses by a realtor until you've signed a BRBC with them that you both agree upon. It's going to formalize the relationship between the buyer and their agent for their home search and for the purchase or any offers that are written. It's going to define the compensation of the buyer's agent through percentage or flat fee. It's going to create transparency and clarity for both parties. It is again mandatory in California before buyers can make an offer through an agent or when touring homes with an agent. There's a box to be checked that it is either exclusive or not exclusive. If you're exclusive, you're only working with a particular realtor. If you're non exclusive, you're working with several realtors or can work with any realtor. But it does have to be signed by each realtor you're working with, whether it's exclusive or non exclusive. And it can be set to particular geographies. So if I do a lot of homes in Lincoln, California, I'll generally set my geography to Lincoln, California. And that way, if the my buyer wants to work with a different agent in a different city, it doesn't require them to only work with me. The agreement is typically exclusive for the geography, meaning that the buyer can still work with other agents in other areas. However, you're only usually working with one particular agent in one particular area. It doesn't have to be written like this, but most of them are because most realtors want the assurance that their buyer is going to be loyal to working with them and the time that they're committing to working with that buyer. The duration of the contract can be last up to 3 months. After 3 months, it's over, but it can be extended. So a lot of home searches take longer than 3 months, and so the 3 months goes by. And if you still enjoy working with that agent, then you simply extend it. The duration can also be less than 3 months. And so maybe you're exploring homes in a particular geography and you're not quite sure if you like a particular agent yet. You can actually set that duration for, let's say, 5 days. And within that 5 days, the agent shows you homes and you don't find a home within 5 days, but you like that agent. At that point in time, you can go sign a new BRBC that lasts longer. So now you and that agent have committed to each other to work with each other for a longer period of time until they find you a house. When do you have to sign a BRBC? So I always tell people if you're just starting to look at houses, don't worry about signing a BRBC or getting an agent just yet. Just stick to open houses because you don't have to sign a BRBC to go look at open houses. But a BRBC must be signed for an agent to show you houses that are not listed within their own brokerage and before an agent can write an offer. So, as you're getting more serious about homes or you're in a financial position to make an offer, that's really when you should consider signing a BRBC with an agent. You do not have to sign to go to open houses, and you do not need to sign to see an agent's own personal listing. So, let's say there's not an open house but you want to see a home, you can contact that listing agent and they can show you that home without you signing a BRBC. At that point in time, the agent may try to get you to sign a BRBC, but you do not have to sign a BRBC at that time. Again, recommendation, if you're just starting your home buying journey, just stick to open houses until you get a feel for what you're looking for, unless you already know an agent that you enjoy working with. In that case, go ahead and do a BRBC with them, and they can show you houses whenever they're available to show. Key components of the BRBC. So the first part is going to be the length of representation period, never to exceed 90 days. It can be extended, but 90 days is the max with the original BRBC. It can also be for a shorter amount of time. And so if you have just met an agent and you're not actually sure if you like them or if they're knowledgeable or if they're going to put forth the effort for you, you may consider signing something for, let's say, maybe 5 days, and that agent can show you properties or make any offers for you within a 5 day period. And if you enjoy working with them, you can always extend that period to longer. That allows you to start working with somebody without a long-term obligation. And so that's something to consider as a buyer. It's going to outline the obligations of the parties for kind of loyalty and effort. Is the easiest way to say that. It's going to discuss the commission to be paid to the buyer's agent, which is extremely important to understand how that works, and we'll discuss that in more detail in a moment. And then it's going to, the other component is the exclusivity or the non-exclusivity of the representation throughout that period. And so exclusivity is where you choose an agent in a particular geography and you are only working with that agent in that geography. Non-exclusive is going to be you can work with any agent in any geography. Most realtors won't do non-exclusive only because they're spending their time and effort and energy in bringing you around and showing you homes, and so they'll only look to really do some sort of exclusive representation. Now you can kind of protect yourself by narrowing down that geography or narrowing down the length of time. But if you're working with an agent and they say, I only do, exclusive representation, now you can understand kind of why they're going that route. And some agents will bend on that, and some agents, they'll just pass you on to another agent. And so just be aware of that. Key concepts to understand. So it's going to create a contract for representation, and this is really important. The BRBC states that the buyer is responsible for the buyer's agent's commission. This is part of what came out of that lawsuit with NAR, and so this is the way that this contract has to be explained to buyers. The buyer is responsible for the agent commission. However, that being said, when the offer is written to buy the home, the buyer's agent will request that the seller pay that commission instead of the buyer. So this is all based on the fact that everybody needs to understand that everything is negotiable and everything is transparent. And so again, in that situation, the buyer's agent is requesting that the seller pay the commission instead of the buyer. Now, what if the seller refuses to pay the buyer's agent's commission? This is very rare, but you need to understand your options if you make an offer on a home and the seller refuses to pay the buyer's agent commission. Option number one, which is probably the most common, we simply look for another home where the seller is willing to pay the buyer's agent's commission, right? So we abandon the home that you were making an offer on, and we go look for another home. We know this. We're told this whenever we get the counter offer from our original offer. So we would make an offer requesting that the price of the home and that they pay the commission, and then they would counter offer and say, no, we're not paying commission. Again, this is very rare, but you need to know that it can happen. So again, option number one, the simplest, we just look for another home where the seller's willing to pay the buyer's agent's commission. Option number two, the agent and the buyer can agree to terminate the BRBC, and the buyer can go directly to the listing agent. This is if you just found the home of your dreams and you can't live without this home. You really don't want to look for another house, and you want to make an offer. The agent and the buyer can agree to terminate the relationship, and the buyer can go directly to the listing agent. However, this is a big warning, because now, as a buyer, if you're working directly with that listing agent, you have no representation. You don't have anybody looking over your best interest throughout the rest of the process, which is going to be inspections, negotiations, and the rest of the transaction. So that's a big warning to all buyers if they chose number two. Option number three, the agent and the buyer can agree to amend the BRBC to reduce the compensation by a percentage or flat fee. So in this scenario, option three, the buyer is paying the buyer's agent to continue through the rest of the transaction. The benefit to the buyer is that they still have representation throughout the process. And then option four, the buyer pays the original BRBC commission to the buyer's agent, and the buyer's agent continues to represent them. So that's the gist of the BRBC. Agents can go in it through the BRBC with you in more detail. We're going to continue on with this video and show a BRBC and show an offer that explains where the commission is paid, so that you can see it beforehand and feel comfortable with what's going on. Real quick, let's take a look at the buyer's representation and broker compensation agreement. If you would like this emailed to you, if you're working in my area, or if you'd like to consider me as your agent, I'm happy to email you this document, and you can take your time looking through and feeling comfortable with it, and developing any further questions you might have. So the first page just discusses the relationship of everybody involved in it, and so and responsibilities, and so it's pretty general and self-explanatory. You'll be asked to check those boxes and sign here, as well as your agent. And then down here we've got the date of preparation. The buyers, plural or singular, can be here. These names should be written as your legal form, however you're going to want those written in future legal documents. We've got the representation period, which can be 1 to 90 days. Again, if you're not familiar with your agent yet, or you're not quite comfortable that they're for sure your long-term solution, you can just put fewer days here, and then if you like them, you can actually extend that. So no big deal. Exclusive or non-exclusive, agents are going to always prefer that you're okay with exclusivity, and I'm going to show you how that can cancel down below here. But agents are going to want to be exclusive to you and you exclusive to them, and so that's because of the time and the effort that they're going to put forth in helping you find your home. However, if you are not comfortable with that, this is your transaction. So if you're not comfortable with having an exclusive agent, just tell them I'm not doing an exclusive representation with anybody, and they may just pass on you as buyers, and you can find an agent who is willing to do non-exclusive. This part right here, it's always single family residential unless these other ones are checked. Right here is where you can define the service scope of your agent. And so do you want them to represent you in one city and you want a different realtor in a different city, or are you okay with them representing you uh, throughout the county, or are they your ride or die um, agent that no matter where you go in California, you're going to want them to write the offer? If that's the case, don't put anything here. But if you want to narrow down their geography of service, you can do that right here. This was originally intended to like put a home address, but most people don't know the home addresses that they're even going to go look at yet. So it's kind of a silly thing. Nobody really uses it. Properties excluded for representation. This would be if you were working with a different agent previously and they had showed you properties, but maybe your your agreement with them has terminated. Well, there's a continuation period for all this. So if you were looking at other properties and you know what those properties are, you should let your agent know, and those should be listed right here. Again, if you haven't really been looking at other properties with other agents, this isn't anything to worry about. Right here, this is the percentage of, and it's usually always by percent. Very rarely is it for flat fee with agents, but it could be. This is where that goes here. Again, this BRBC, this form, is stating that you are responsible to pay that if the seller doesn't pay, right? And then we also said that we're going to get you out of that by asking the seller to pay. And if the seller doesn't pay, we have options. And so, but because of this whole NAR lawsuit, this is how the conversation and the forms must flow going forward. Okay, so we're going to put that percentage here. This just states that whatever the seller does pay, it's going to go towards that commission there again, so you don't have to. The continuation period, this is just if your agreement ends with the agent and you end up getting a house that they showed you, they're going to get credit for the houses that they showed you within the period that they were representing you. This is where you can actually kind of get out of that whole exclusive or non-exclusive deal. And so let's say your agent suggested that they want to be exclusive with you and you agree. Okay, great. You guys agree. But then down here, you put, however, if I want to cancel with you, I can do so within 1 day. Okay. So that's kind of like a loophole for you as a buyer to say, I'll work with you non exclusively. However, if I feel like you're not doing a good job for me and I want to get out of it working with you, I can do that pretty much immediately. Okay. Um, Time to deliver personal financial information. Most agents won't take this um, literally because a lot of home buyers aren't ready to actually buy yet. Sometimes they have houses that they need to sell or they need funds that need to transfer. So most agents don't hold buyers to this. That being said, you're not going to be able to make an offer on a house until you basically are financially able to. And so it's okay to go and look at houses with an agent and having signed a BRBC, but just keep in mind that once you find that house, you're only going to have about 3 days to produce your proof of funds and your any lender approval letters that you may need. Okay. This is just more protection for you as the buyer about paying the commissions. And so we check a box here. Buyer does not have sufficient funds to pay broker. Okay. Right here, buyer obligation to represent buyer in a transaction is contingent upon a seller's agreement to pay the amount of compensation. So if they can't pay that, then we're not going to represent you, right? And so that's where we're going to go look for another house. And then I put this in here as well. Cancellation of agreement when seller refuses to pay agent commission. And so again, this is more protection for you. Now, if you don't want this here, or if you are okay paying as a buyer, paying the broker's commission, then that's a different story. We would uncheck this box and we would take this line out of there. But most people do not want to pay the buyer's agent's commission. Okay, and then as we scroll down further, there's just one more kind of major. This is all just explaining all of that in more detail. And then one last box down here is, and it's regarding the exclusive representation. And if you did do that and were okay with that, this is where you would initial here. So that's it. That's the gist of the agreement. If you have any questions after reviewing it, feel free. Really, you should review this and sign this before, like days before you go and look at houses. If you are trying to do this agreement and get it done the day of going to view houses, I think that's going to be a little bit of a stressful situation unless you've been able to view and be comfortable what's on this beforehand. And so again, if you'd like to check it out, give me a call and I can email it to you. And real quick, while we're doing an educational video, this is what they call an RPA, a residential purchase agreement. So this is what goes to the seller whenever we make an offer. And you can see here, it's going to have, the purchase price, the escrow, it's going to have proof of funds, deposit, and all that stuff. But what I wanted to show you relative to this video is on this portion right here, seller payment to cover buyer expenses and costs. This is where in our original offer to the seller, we're going to check that box. It's going to say seller payment to compensate buyer's broker, and then it's going to have the same percentage as what was on your BRBC. And so hopefully now, after kind of understanding more about a BRBC, being able to see the form, being able to see an example of an offer letter that goes to the seller, hopefully now you're feeling pretty comfortable with the concept of a BRBC and how it fits into the transaction. Again, I'm Jeff Coons. If you guys need any help finding a home, please, I would love to help you. If you have any questions on real estate transactions or forms, let me know. Have a great day. Bye.